Welcome. Thank you, everyone, for joining us here. I think the attendance to this panel is a testimony to the fact that we still have to cover some ground in raising this excitement for European policy issues. But I think we're trying our very best to do that, and then there will be a recording, and this will be a point of reference for people. We have the whole this edition of the Congress of Lichter Filmfest is dedicated to the topic of Europe, and this is very fitting, as in about 2 months we have European parliamentary elections, which is something where people usually in the first instance will not think about film and audiovisual media as topics of debate, but it is quite the contrary is the case, as we will discover now on this panel, for which I welcome 3 illustrious panelists. I have Juliette Prissard, who came here from Brussels, who is working for Eurocinema, the representation of French producers to the EU, and formerly head of the Independent French Producers Association. We have Julio Talavera, who came from Madrid, right? Who is an independent consultant and analyst, and formerly of the European Audiovisual Observatory, which is also a very big recommendation to just click on this website, which just delivers a very wealth of information on statistics and on what's really going on in European audiovisual media. And then we have Bill Anderson, who is the chairman of FERA, which is the European Association of Film Directors, and hence someone who will point out the the general debate, but also a little bit the point of view of the creatives. The aim of this panel is a bit to do a tour d'horizon at the issues which are at stake in the European politics with regards to film and cinema. So we'll cover a broad range of issues, and everyone is welcome to maybe then to pitch in if there are any questions, because I think it's a very there's probably very different levels of knowledge as to what we as to what is known about these issues. So as a first question, I would say we have these elections, we have film people. Why should people who are interested in developing film culture care about European film policy? Juliette.
Okay. Yes. Hello, everyone. Thank you for inviting me. I'm very happy to be there to discover this new festival. I never been before. Very political. That's great, because political matters are important to culture. Yes. Now the elections are key for us. Why so? Because even maybe if you are not all aware of it, the members of parliament and the commission and the council has very strong powers. They define a lot of things for your future, for the future of culture, but not only, for the future of all the topics, all the things that that rule the society. So concerning culture, of course, there is no competence of the Europe on the cultural matters. Nonetheless, they are still regulating the media. They are regulating copyright, and also they are ruling one fund that maybe you have been you have been the beneficiary of. It's called Media Fund, Europe Creative Fund, and all these topics are ruled at the European level. You have also to be aware of the fact that there are 2 types of legislative act in Europe. You have directive and regulations. The directive are rules that are minimum rules, and the implementation is decided by each member state. And regulations are rules that are directly applicable in each member state with no implementation. And now, the 5 last years, the Parliament and the Commission has decided to go through regulation, meaning with no transposition. That means that when they decide something in Brussels, it's applicable here in Germany right away. And it will be more and more this kind of regulation that will be in the process in the future for the revision of Copyright Act, Copyright Directive, regulation of Media Service Directive, Audiovisual Media Service Directive, and so on and so on. That means that also, for this, only just for this reason, it is important that you go to vote and choose your future.
Thank you very much. Julio.
Yeah, that was a very good explanation. I don't know if I should add something, but I'm going to look at this from a more philosophical perspective, because the technical explanation was excellent. I would say, can I ask you a question first? How many of you have seen in the last year, let's say, one or two European non-German films? Could you raise your hands? Excellent, excellent. You would agree that this panel and the people present here are not representative of what we would find outside on the street. But nonetheless, I mean, you have a special interest, otherwise you wouldn't be here. But nonetheless, I suppose, and this is only a guess, that you have become a little bit more European or aware of Europeanness thanks to watching those movies. And the European Union, because of the principle of subsidiarity, it is the countries who support and design most of the film and audiovisual policy in each member state. But nonetheless, the European Union, thanks to Creative Europe, and correct me if I'm wrong, because you know this much better than me, does a lot to foster precisely that films from other European countries are made available to you either on streaming or in cinema theaters, therefore creating a common idea of Europe, but at the same time spreading the diversity of Europe. Because my guess is that most of those films you saw were in the original language, at least in many cases. So this is one of the reasons why the audiovisual sector is important. This from the more philosophical point of view. Now, from the industry point of view, this is also important because, as it can be seen in the Audiovisual Media Services Directive, which we will elaborate on later on in the discussion, a lot of rules come from the European Union, and a lot of money derived from investment obligations to the different stakeholders in the industry come from this directive and therefore from Europe. So it's quite important, both at a more philosophical level of fostering Europeanness and the knowledge of the different European cultures through cinema, but also on the industry side. And I just gave you this example, but there are many others. The the Audiovisual Media Services Directive requires European stakeholders to invest in European cinema. So that's pretty much it for now.
Bill.
Yeah, I mean, I think that was a wonderful technical outline and a wonderful philosophical outline. And I think I'm going to do the emotional without wishing to be typecast. But so I'm just going to ask you all a question. When the lights go down in a cinema and you're about to watch a film, or you're about to press the play on the remote and watch an audiovisual piece of work that you have paid for, what are you hoping for? Are you hoping to see something pretty much like what you saw before, but maybe a tiny little bit different? Because I believe what we're hoping for, certainly what I'm hoping for, is some kind of profound, intimate human connection through story. I think that when I'm sitting in a cinema and the lights are going down, or I'm about to press play on a remote, I'm making my soul available. I'm hoping, even if I'm watching Minions 27 with my children, even if I'm watching a terrible soap opera on the TV, I'm hoping that somewhere in there will be some profound human connection. And I think the reason why it's really important that cinema can do that is because in Europe right now we are not living in a world where there is an overabundance of understanding between people or an overabundance of tolerance between people. And I think actually being able to connect with storytellers from different cultures, when we talk about diversity, this is what it means to me, that you start to understand people who are outside your bubble. And when you understand people who are outside your bubble, then I believe it's more likely that you can tolerate them. And I believe if you can understand them and tolerate them, I believe it's less likely you'll go to war with them. And I think that the issue politically, if I can get away just from the pure emotion, is just that if we allow Europe to be completely dominated by streamers, this is like a kind of totalitarian culture. It is a bubble. It's not about individual Latvian authors or North Macedonian authors or French or German. It's an American algorithm. AI is even more precise. And so for me, the really important thing about the elections is to preserve the cultural diversity through creative freedom of storytellers. That's the key thing, because when we watch audiovisual works, we know if we're in the presence of a human storyteller who is honest with us. I believe as audiences are incredibly sophisticated. If someone's doing this if someone's telling a story just to make money and they're being dishonest and they're doing it in a formulaic way, we feel it. We may sit there and enjoy it and eat the popcorn, but we know it's not completely true. And that's what we yearn for. I think it's that truth which is really key. And I think that's the reason why we need to promote European audiovisual culture and elections.
Thank you very much. I think we've had 3 very convincing pleas, and I would take up this aspect of like the human connection and the human sincerity maybe for the end, to pick it up again. Also when we're discussing AI, which is a very interesting topic. But you have uttered this plea, like you said, like, okay, now Europe is this thing which preserves this diversity and establishes these connections. Now let's maybe take a step back, and a lot of things have happened in the last 5 years in European policy regarding media. Would you say this is something which European politics effectively has in mind? Is this something where you would say, could you say like, what was the aim of was there a guiding idea of the European audiovisual policy in the last 5 years, Juliette?
Yes, unfortunately, yes, I do. I do see what is the goal. Okay, to make it in a nutshell, to put it in a nutshell, I would say that the problem that we have is that more and more everything is digital. It's digital in your car, it's digital in your mobile phone, it's digital everywhere, and it's digital. I don't know. We need the digital. We need the ships to make the digital. We need the algorithms to make it digital. We need the clouds to make it digital. Okay. So in every word that I'm using now, you have US, 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 and US. And you have US technology, and US technology. I would even say the same for the VOD streamers. Now we have code back a bit but you know, the Netflix algorithm is one of the best of the world. We'll never be able to make the same. Okay, so all this technology it will be very difficult to catch that back. So the thing is that the cultural policy is mesmerized in Europe. The politicians are mesmerized by the fact that they feel that they are late. We are late, you know, like the rabbit in Alice to the Lewis Carroll. You know, we are late. We must catch back. But the thing is that culture is forgotten in that. We need to, of course, innovation is one point, and I'm not sure that we will be able to catch back. And I think it's a wrong way of thinking, in the way that we think that with the cultural matters, we will be able to catch back the difference in technology. The technology is one thing, telling a story is another thing. And telling a story is necessary for democracy. It's necessary to have artists, to have the diversity in terms of writing. If we want to do industry while telling stories, well, we are trapped, because we'll never do the same than the States. They will do always better generative AI, better. And yes, that's the problem we're facing and we're coping with at the moment, yes.
So you say, to understand it, you say the guiding principle is catching up
Yes.
regardless of the content.
Yes.
So, okay. Would you agree with that, Julio?
Partially. Or better said, yes, I agree. And I would add something. Well, first of all, the media program has taken this very much into consideration. One of the 4 clusters of the Creative Europe Media Program is devoted to innovation. It's very difficult to catch up with a very established industry such as the American one. I doubt that this can be done exclusively via the European Union. I think different institutions, and very especially the audiovisual industry, has to be very much involved. The main problem for me, and let me know what you think, is the structure of the European film and audiovisual industry, with very few big companies and a lot of SMEs, very, very small. Most European films are produced by companies who produce less than 1 film a year. And very, 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 very few companies, I'll make it up, the figure, but I would say around 1%, produce more than 2, 3, 4 films a year. This compared to what happens in the UK or especially in the US, and I'm not talking only about Hollywood, US including independent productions, is very different. Therefore, this is reflected in the different industry sectors related to the audiovisual sector. I'm talking about everything, color grading studios, post-production studios, studios themselves, virtual production studios, etc. And it's very difficult that Europe can catch up if the structure of the European industry remains like this. Now the question, and it's an open question for which I have no answer, the question is it possible from the policy level, from the European institutions, to force or to foster this rearrangement of the European audiovisual industry? I don't know. Is it desirable for this, what you mentioned right now? I think so.
Thank you very much. Would you? What is your view on the past 5 years and your ideals that you laid out in the beginning?
Well, I think that the key thing is that is the rise of the streamers, and it feels like Europe is saying, "Hey, this works. It works financially, so let's do this." And I think that it was working on the basis of massive loss-making, because the streamers were pumping money in on the assumption that if there were 6 of them, 2 would be left standing in 3 years' time. But they needed to be the winner. So it was a Pyrrhic amount of money, which is now being withdrawn, and we're seeing that acutely in the UK, where they were building studios as fast as they could pour concrete, and now the production's gone down. What I think, there are 2 things that I think are really important to draw people's attention to from a director's point of view. One is the kind of notion of creative freedom, whereby with this sort of model in place, you self-censor, directors self-censor to actually fit the model because they want to eat. The median career peak income for an EU director is after tax around 25,000 euros, and if you are female, it's 19,000 euros. So directors are hungry, especially if they have children, and they want to feed them. The second thing is that the American model of directing is really quite different in terms of authorship. So basically in America, because directors did not have copyright, you have a situation whereby if you are directing an hour episode of a high-end streamer production, you get 4 days in the edit per hour. And after 4 days, when you've nearly kind of got a rough cut together, they say, thanks very much, goodbye. So you don't see the story through. You don't actually see, you don't finish the story that the audience experience. That's sort of handed over to a committee. And the problem with that is that if you're not negotiating with composers how they're going to do the score, and you're not doing color grading, and you're not doing sound design, and all the kind of post-production things which are vital, a lot of them for storytelling, then how do you learn to do it? You can't. So there is kind of an erosion, there's been an erosion of actual sort of complete authorship skills in direction for screens we own rather than screens we visit. And that has been kind of, and it's not because the Americans are intrinsically evil on this account, it's just because that's the way their employment model works.
In the mainstream, at least.
In the mainstream, exactly. This is not a cinema thing.
Yeah.
But the vast majority of work is actually for screens we own rather than screens we visit.
So, please pitch it.
Yeah, may I add something on that? Because I fully agree. There was a very provocative statement, I think it was Red Hastings at Netflix, who said that Netflix had done much more for European cultural diversity than all the cinema institutes in Europe together.
Shame on him.
Yeah.
But he said this.
And he
said this because it forced a counter reaction, or because it poured so much money in.
No, because they put so much money on European productions, and also because they have achieved something which European TV producers and broadcasters have not achieved so far, which is that you watch a Spanish blockbuster here, Money Heist, or a Korean blockbuster like this Squid Game TV series in Italy. And he was referring to that. I mean, he was being provocative, but I think he was not trying to insult anyone. But this sounds great. Of course, Netflix is not evil. Netflix has done a lot for the industry, but let's not forget, if European talent is involved in those productions in the national languages, in German, Spanish, Italian, and with local crews and so on, which is good for the economy, the IP remains American. The IP remains American. Plus, and this is a personal opinion, I mean, this is subjective, these productions look pretty much like an American mainstream production. Shot maybe in Rome or in Berlin or in Frankfurt with local artists, but they look pretty much like an American blockbuster, and they are good, of course, and this is good for the industry, no doubt, but let's not forget the key issue here, keeping the European identity, keeping the IP, the intellectual property, and having European authorship, as you mentioned. So
basically, what we are, what you kind of outline is a model which is both a cultural and an economic model that go together. So that is what I hear from what you're saying, that a certain cultural value that is inherent in European film production is intrinsically tied to the kind of way film production works in Europe on a small scale. Would you say, Juliette, that the amongst all this catching up, I mean, we have seen some developments, for example, in the Audiovisual Media Services Directive, which is the regulation, which is not a regulation, but I'll call it regulation now, which are the rules set, which also, for example, allows for what is now being discussed in Germany, the investment obligation. So it contains the possibility to kind of oblige streaming services to invest a certain amount of money into European production, and also set further conditions, for example, that IP remains with European companies, and it has quotas. It also contains quotas for European products. Would you say that this is the way it has been designed is an adequate way of going towards this goal of preserving this European way of producing films, or is it just a catching up?
Okay, that's a really good question. I have so many things to tell you about that. I will try to do it quick and efficient. First, I want to say that I do represent French producers organizations, and then we advocate for one thing that is key to us. We call in French production déléguée, and in English it's just we advocate for production, not commissioning, not line producing, not working in the name and on behalf of the streamers. We advocate for the fact that we are at the initiative with the authors of projects that are assigned to us for a certain period of time. The moral rights are kept by the authors, and then we try to find again financing of this project when the script is over, is finished with the casting, and then after we produce the film, we guarantee the completion of this film, and after we get the rights on the film and the exploitation rights. Okay, all this idea used to be like the usual way of doing things before, and now it's not anymore the case, because the streamers came and they have this very peculiar way of doing things, meaning that you just do exactly whatever I want you to do, to say and to do, and I finance the film and I get the IP, I get the outsourced material, and that's it. Okay. That's the new vision that they have. So now I get back to your question. If there is an obligation to produce from the streamers, that's a good thing, because we have advocated for that. The thing is that it has to be our way.
It has to
be in our way,
yeah.
Not their way. So that means that it is important that if there is an obligation to produce, it's to invest money into production, and that we as producers keep the freedom to choose our authors, to choose the story they want to tell us, and to take the risks. We want to be able to keep carry on taking the risk, and not being only working, doing commissioning on a budget. That's not the reason why the producers create their production companies. They want to be able to suggest something, to be in a logic to offer something that is different, a dairy thing, and not just something that the consumer is expecting, because that's the way we see our jobs.
Would you say, I don't know, Juliette or Giulio, would you say that this in the implementation has worked? So has it actually fostered and strengthened European? I mean, the directive is from 2018, so we're just 6 years into it, and we might be, so that's the lookout, we might be looking into some revisions also in the next legislature. Do you think it has worked so far? Because, as you said, it's a directive, so it needs to be implemented in the countries, which poses risks, so to speak. So, would you say this has been working in this sense?
I don't have precise figures, but I would say it has worked, but less than expected. I don't know if you agree. And I think people knew this would happen. One point you mentioned, that this has been approved 6 years ago. In fact, it's a little bit less. Plus, there are 2 years to implement into national legislation. Plus, 5 countries from memory. I think it was Spain, Ireland, Slovakia, Czech Republic, and Romania. Did it later and were brought to the court because of that. Plus, the obligations begin 1 year, the fiscal year after the national law has been approved. All this to say that it's too early to have real figures. I can only give you an impression, a general impression of the people I talk to in different countries, which is, yes, the situation has improved. Of course, now there is an obligation which was not there before, or it has been done much more concrete, but compared to what it can be done. I think people were expecting more money to come out of this.
Now we were talking about this, we're still following this main thread of saying, okay, what is the cultural aspects, and with which economical structure can they be achieved? And I think another issue where this kind of crystallizes is the question of geo-blocking. It was something which is, I might maybe ask, is who in this audience was aware that there was a vote on geo-blocking in December last year? Was it discussed with anyone? One. Okay, so this is interesting, and we also discussed this beforehand. So this is one of the fundamental structural pillars of the way European film industry works, and there was a vote on it, and it was really discussed in the national film policy debates. So now geo-blocking is a possibility of selecting markets, so to say you have the rights for this film in France and maybe Benelux, and then you as a producer sell it in Spain and then in Latvia, and so you can bit by bit make your money and assemble your financing. If this would fall away, I think the whole economic model would change. So the question is, are we able to define sorry, I have to rephrase this question. Is it better to kind of regulate this market into this kind of, I'd say, artificial division of market spheres, or wouldn't it be better to say we open up this European market and create a European champion? I think this is something that we've said. So because you said before Netflix is something, it's American, they're ahead of us. So they're ahead of us. This was only possible because Netflix has a very big home market and Europe has this very fragmented market. So the question is the European industry and European policy also kind of hindered by a fear of doing a next step and trying a new market model, or is it necessary to keep up the segmented regulation? Yet.
Okay, of course, you can imagine that we say it is important to keep the segmented regulation. When you are a producer, what you keep the control of the story that you want to tell with your author only if you control the financing. If you ask the streamers, you allow the streamers to grab 100% of the financing on the film, because if you leave geo-blocking, do you know what is geo-blocking? Yes, everybody? Okay. If you say it's not possible anymore for a TV channel, for instance, I'm a producer, I work with ZDF. ZDF say, okay, I like your script, I want to take it, okay, great. So then I write the film, I buy the film for the German territory when it's finished. So what do I sell? I sell the exclusivity to ZDF. Yes. Okay, but ZDF only gives me, 30% of my budget. So where do I find the rest of the money, meaning 70%? Where? Okay, I go to the German Film Fund, or to the regional film fund, but it remains. I still need 30%. Where do I go? So I go to a producer company. So I go to see a French or a Spanish or whatever. So the one, and then I have a Spanish co-producer doing the film with me. And what does the Spanish co-producer does? He goes to the Antena 3. And he says, yes, are you interested by the film? Yes, I'm interested, but you have to grant me the exclusivity on the territory, so of the Spanish territory. So it means that if there is no exclusivity, there is no financing. And if I'm a producer, I cannot guarantee the financing, the exclusivity to ZDF nor to Antena 3. That means that they won't be interested to buy my film. So the only people that will be interested in buying my film, it's Netflix. Okay, so I don't want to have only one choice. One-stop shop. Disney, Amazon, Netflix, Amazon, Disney, Amazon, Netflix. It's not possible. And also because of the stories that I want to say, because what has been said very virtuously before, there is a kind of a standardization of the stories. It's always the same stories. So we need to have the choice. And it's a question of diversity. And also, why not a European Netflix? Because a European Netflix would just, if there is no geo-blocking possible anymore, European Netflix is great. But that means it will never replace the financing of ZDF, plus Antena 13, plus France Télévisions, plus RAI, plus plus If we have no more geo-blocking, all this will vanish and disappear.
So a condition for like a non-geo-blocked Europe would then basically be also, for example, a whole community of like the whole all media budgets of TV stations going into one.
They are doing so. EBU, the public channels, they are doing some co-productions together already, and it works well. ZDF, the RAI, and France Télévisions, they are producing a series together. They are doing so already. That's a good initiative, and we push for that. That's great.
Do you see any kind of any movement of like a plan B in case this geo-blocking thing? Because I mean, we sent out questionnaires about the film policy to all the parties, and 2 of them already arrived, and the other ones will come a little bit later and will then be published through the channels of the Initiative Kino, Zukunft Kino and Film. And both of them had doubts on the geo-blocking thing. We got the answers from the Greens and from the left party, and both of them had doubts. They were like ambivalent, but both of them have doubts. Are there any ideas of a plan B of how a European audiovisual market could be structured if the geo-blocking does not happen?
Yeah, there is a plan. There is a plan B, which is closing the business and looking for another job. For me, if you ask me, as a European citizen, I'm completely against geo-blocking because it goes against the common market and against my interests. That said, from the industry perspective, it would be a suicide. It would be a suicide because the production system and the financing of European audiovisual works as we know it would be destroyed and not replaced by anything else. So it's like shooting yourself on your foot. Of course, it would be better to have a common market, of course, for everything. But right now, it's not feasible. And I would like to add just one thing, which I find very curious. You mentioned before, when asking the question, you made the difference between the artificial geo-blocking structure and the natural European copyright. I think it's the other way around.
Yeah, okay.
I think what is natural is not the geo-blocking, but the national copyright, because copyright is linked to nation states historically. It's linked to the country. And a European, a hypothetical European copyright would be something artificial. Artificial doesn't mean good or bad. In this case, it would be, in my opinion, extremely bad for the industry, but I can see that there is a balance with the citizens' rights and interests and the industry rights and interests. So my point would be, let's not destroy something before we have something better to replace it with.
Juliette?
Yes, I agree.
Yeah, because you said you wanted to...
No, just said because I need to catch a plane, so I will leave in 5 minutes. But, I do agree with you, and then you say the solution is that if we find a solution, then we can change. But before, that means the end of the story. And then the thing is that the winner at the end, are the streamers. And that, I'm not against the streamers, to make it clear. It's just like there must be something else apart from it. It cannot be the only thing that we have on the market. That's not possible.
Bill?
I was going to say that for me, again, as a little bit of a child on this as a creator, it seems that actually the geo-blocking and the copyright issues are very much intertwined, because there are people out there, who actually want copyright just to go away, like it has gone away in America, or they never had it in America. So the buyout deals, which are just basically non-copyright because you give your copyright away for some cash up front. And it just seems to me that, in the copyright directive that had just been passed and is being transposed into law in all the countries of Europe, there is a hit clause. I was speaking with Julio and saying that, like, actually, a lot of the geo-blocking, small films, small budgets, they make their money in a very limited pool of audiences that they know, but occasionally, you quoted 1% out of the air, it's a big hit and it makes money, but the producers can't make any money from that hit because all the rights have already been sold. But it would be perfectly possible, in the same way as there has been a hit clause put into the copyright directive to reward authors when there's a massive hit way beyond expectation, to do that for geo-blocking, I would have thought, geo-chain blocking, blockchaining, so that you could, everyone knows now. We have a transparency issue with the copyright directive. You could have a similar transparency issue with geo-blocking. If you've got a hit, you know how many sales you've made, you know how many people have clicked on it, you know how much is used, you know the value of that. So if it's a hit, then you have to pay, the producer can recuperate, can actually benefit, from that. So I think that it's, copyright and geo-blocking they feel like cousins in the same family of, copyright's protectionism. If you're an American who doesn't believe in it.
Yeah, I think it's a very good idea, but 2 points here. First, you mentioned that the Americans, they don't have it, they don't need it. The US is a market. That's a common market. We are a common market under construction at the European Union. Then, I think your idea is quite good, and now with blockchain, it would be feasible without a lot of complexity. The problem is, and I ask a question very naively, let's say I'm a German distributor, and you producer, come to me with a film, which I think is going to work here in Germany, but who knows elsewhere. And let's say there is European copyright. I get the copyright for all the territories. And with what you are saying, if one day I release the film abroad, I'll have to pay you. And this will be established by law. Okay, the problem is with the current structure of the European industry, which interest would I have to risk the huge amount of money needed to go to other markets, to test, to go to markets and discuss with local distributors. I don't think I'm going to do it as a German distributor right now. I don't know. I think what you are suggesting is quite ideal. I hope this is implemented, this or any other solution, because the European copyright is a good idea, but not at the expense of smaller producers.
One way the European Union has, and we've mentioned this before, and I think many in this room have probably also already had contact with it, is the Creative Europe Media Program, which is an aim of funding, or like helping to fund European film productions, which is also notorious for being extremely complicated and hard to access. Would you say that, Julio, that the media program has found an identity in its structure, to say, like, to have a role in the kind of various tiers of European film funding, or and is it integrated into this whole set of market measures that we have discussed before, or is it just like a hard to get add-on, as it sometimes seems? I mean, I think from the inside.
Okay, I don't have that impression.
Okay.
I don't know, maybe you want to elaborate a little bit
in the
more on
sense that
or?
it's like that it's something that is like in how far is it really does it have a niche or like a specific profile that is not just another film fund on top of others?
Well, yeah, first of all, because of the principle of subsidiarity in the European Union, the media program does not support production itself or very small specific programs. most of the money goes to distribution, exhibition, and also co-development. In that regard, yes, it's not like if you go here to the FFA or to the Hessische Film Fund and ask for money. It doesn't work that way. However, I think they have done a lot for what they are supposed to do, which is not funding production of European films. This should be done by the countries, and this is also done, This is also done partially by Orimage, the Council of Europe's film fund. Now, what they have achieved is that, let's say, an Irish and an Italian producer, they want to co-develop a film. That's going to be really expensive compared to producing a film between two co-producers based here in Frankfurt, because of the language issues, because of the legal issues, because of the distance, because of the cultural differences. And the media program, one of the clusters, which is the production cluster of the media program, bridges or attempts to bridge that gap. And they have been very successful in that. Then another issue, audiences, another of the clusters of the media program. The media program has supported a lot the release and dissemination of non-national European films. That is, Italian, French, Portuguese, and Latvian films in Germany, Spanish films in Portugal, Portuguese films in Latvia. And they have achieved a lot with Europa cinemas, with several programs to support film festivals as well. And, but this is a personal opinion, they have also done a little bit, but not enough in my opinion, to foster, to disseminate and to promote European films outside Europe. Why? I know if you support a European Film Festival in the United States, Canada, or China, only people in the very big cities with a certain educational level and interest in foreign countries are going to attend those events. However, they are very important people when it comes to achieving a certain European soft power. So it's not only about the quantity, it's not only about having a European blockbuster in the US or in China. This is very unlikely to happen regularly. It may happen once every few years. However, having people from the administration, well-educated people from big cities with good jobs, and generate this soft power thanks to cinema is very possible, and I think that that line should be exploited much more. Then the other cluster, one of the other main clusters is innovation, and this is key because Europe is losing the battle of innovation in the audiovisual sector. Most of the technology is American. We rely on American technology, and the media program is doing something. All that being said, it cannot be expected, and this is a personal opinion, of course, it cannot be expected that all the solutions to the different problems in the sector come from the public sector. The public sector can help. The media program helps a lot. The media program cannot solve all the problems with the small budget they have compared to the overall industry. So I would prize the media program. I think they do an amazing job and they have achieved a lot. but they are not supposed to control the European industry and to set the direction in each country, not at all.
Maybe we come to, we'll take a brief outlook, because I think you're going to talk about this tomorrow also, about artificial intelligence, and because this is a another big issue, and I think we have kind of discussed the whole kind of another pillar on which the way we produce and consume film rests is being kind of radically changed. We've had a legislation in Europe on the AI Act, which has introduced substantial measures. How would you judge what has been achieved, and do you think this is enough to kind of find a balance, strike a balance between the technical possibilities we have and the need to keep or to safeguard the human face of artistry, Bill?
The human species as authors, yeah. I mean, I think the thing is that, I mean, a lot has been achieved, but the really key thing is the text and data mining. And talk about catching up. It's gone. I mean, basically, there was a text and data mining provision which allowed computers to scan data and text for trend purposes, for sales, for market analysis, which seemed reasonable. And then the machines decided to make the product. And the text and data mining was used to make the product. And so even though now the law, the act, whatever it is, the stage it's at, has said, yeah, maybe you can't do that, it's too late. It's already been done. And, you know, you can ask ChatGPT, give me a list of the copyright works that you were trained on as a generative AI model. And it goes, oh, I actually can't do that. I mean, if you ask me an individual work, I can maybe tell you about that. Of course, it knows what it's been trained on. It knows its own bibliography. It knows its own reading list. But it just can't tell you. Anyway, so every single work in human history has already been stolen. Already. So the only ones that we're legislating for are the ones we make tomorrow. And that's a bit depressing. I think the thing that's very encouraging, though, is that AI is merely, from a kind of creator's point of view, turbocharged algorithms. I mean, it's like Netflix's wet dream, whereby you can actually look at what people have liked in the present and the recent past and all that kind of thing, and go and make something very, 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 very similar. And so it's like all it can do is, like an algorithm, everything is backwards looking. Everything is backwards looking. You liked this in the past, so you might list. Other people like you liked this in the past, so you might like this. So it seems to me that what we looked for from storytellers are authors who wake up in the morning and stand at their doorstep and look out at the world and try and make sense of what they see now, today. Because a year ago, we were launching an eco-movie manifesto, an action manifesto for sustainability. And if you want to be really sustainable in this industry, the best way to be sustainable is just stop. Stop making stuff. There is already enough screen, audio, visual entertainment. There's more than you can see in a lifetime. And lots of it is great. So why make any more? Why do we need any more? The reason why we need more is because when John Ford and Tarkovsky and Steven Spielberg were making those movies in the past, they were looking out at a world that was relevant to them at that time, and it's not the same world, and it's not got the same moral questions and complexities that our world has now, and we want to watch stories made by fellow human beings that show us paths into our futures, I believe. Just a personal opinion, as you want to say. And so I think the thing is that what, broadly speaking, directors and storytellers and creators have to do is what AI can't. AI is fantastic at rehashing your burger. It's always, the same, I don't know, Netflix just makes burgers the whole time. Different flavors of burgers, but it's always a burger. And AI will do that even better. But I think, because it is always backward-looking, it's going to be really hard to develop the kind of flawed human point of view software to actually look forwards and make something which actually connects to people. I mean, maybe it'll get there in the end and we can all leave the planet because we're irrelevant, either as consumers or makers or audience or whatever. But I think that basically it's going to produce lift music, the lift music equivalent. And I think I have an enormous respect for audiences. I think audiences will know. You'll know when you're in the presence of something which is being done to harvest eyeballs rather than to touch your soul.
This is might be a good last word, but I'm still asking into the audience: are there any questions, particularities that you might want to catch up of what we've talked about so far? I don't see any, so I will kind of try to somehow summarize. So we're in the big kind of levers that we have in the European policy debate is about the structure that allows for human expression to develop and reach an audience in its manifold forms, and that the European structure that we have is it's a very attractive and very productive model of achieving this, and it now needs to be revised and to be worked on to reflect the challenges of the digital era. Now, this is all very exciting, and so we proved the point, I think, that we made at the beginning. But the last question I would ask you is this is far away from what we discuss here very often. What is your kind of take on how can we kind of connect the European and national debates more? How can people from a national who are maybe involved in national politics get more involved in these European issues? What do we need there? Julio.
I'm going to answer with a provocative question, which is, why should we? Is it bad right now? My impression is that we are assuming that what happens at national level should also happen at European level, and that's not possible. We are a community of 20 plus countries with different languages. I mean, what I'm saying right now is not 100% my opinion. I'm trying to be provocative, but I think there is a little bit of that. To what extent do we have to reach the same level of involvement at European level as at national level? That would be my non-answer to that.
Bill, maybe you want to answer this question.
Well, I just want to say, I want to quote Joni Mitchell, who sang, "You don't know what you've got till it's gone." I mean, I come from the UK, and, talk about insular. I think that, it's really, the value of a common consciousness in Europe should just not be underestimated. In the UK, my God, we miss it. And so I would, if I had the vote, I would use the vote. I want it back. So I think that it's just that you can be wrapped up in your own little, world of things. And I get back to the understanding of other people and just getting your head outside of your own little bubble and end up, understanding people who are your neighbors, who are the people you are most likely to go to war with. and not going to war with them. I think that'd be really good. And that was the initial, ethos, the defining ethos of the EU. And I think it pertains more now than ever.
A question for you as a British citizen and former former EU citizen. Do you have the impression, because this is in line with what I just said, do you really have the impression that, okay, the UK aside, in the rest of the European Union, that there is no commitment, feeling, put the word you want, because people are always saying, what can we do to improve the situation of cohesion, of getting to know each other, and so on and so on and so on. And I really have the impression, maybe I'm too optimistic, I really have the impression that the situation is quite good as it is. It can always be improved, of course, but I do not understand this pessimistic approach. And it's impossible so far, maybe in 1 or 2 generations it's possible, but right now it's impossible to have the same level of involvement with your country where they speak the same language, where a lot of policies affect you very directly, as with the European Union.
I would agree with you, your optimism, in terms of the rhetoric of Europe. I was just really struck. I was at the Lux Awards the year before, and at the presentation in Parliament, and the speech given by the Maltese lady, who was president, was just so moving about the importance of European film. And the importance of film to the European project and culture and all this kind of thing, and how vital that was. And this was being said in the seat of government. And I was sitting there as a sort of raw Brexiteer just going, can I imagine Boris Johnson saying this in the UK Parliament with any kind of level of sincerity? And the answer was no, I can't at all. And the rhetoric was absolutely inspiring and moving. I think it's the connection between being inspired and actually enacting at a national level. I think it's really important the rhetoric carries on being inspiring, and the faith. It's not just rhetoric, it's a faith.
Thank you very much. With this background, I think you will all be even more interested to read the answers that we'll be getting in the next days from the political parties, and I think which Johanna and Gregor will spread among all of you. Thank you very much for sharing your interesting thoughts with us, and thank you for listening.